Did it stop? All right, well, we are here for another webinar that we have open to the public to try to prepare our pre-dental students who are interested in exploring dentistry and getting into dental school, but helping them be the best prepared candidate for dental school. So there's no question that they can get in because they have mentors by their side guiding them along. And what I love about our mentorship program here at Diversity in Dentistry Mentorships, we do have one-on-one mentors that we have that have joined the program. And so we will have additional closed sessions with our mentees matched up with our mentors. But this is great to share this information to the public. And we call this our near peer mentoring, where we have dental students who have recently gone through the process and can really share so much information to really help you guys get the information you need so you can succeed. And by way of introduction, I'm Dr. Layla Hayshaw. I am the proud founder of Diversity in Dentistry Mentorships, and I cannot do this alone. And I'm so grateful to have by my side Dr. Darwin Haye, who serves on our advisory council from the very beginning. It's funny, I was looking back at post Dr. Haye back 5 years ago is when we started that Facebook community that's just grown and flourished into a national nonprofit because it was needed, right? It was needed. And we needed to make sure that if we are going to reach oral health equity, we have to diversify our dental workforce. And to do that, we got to prepare our dental students so that dental schools are accepting our students here from underrepresented backgrounds. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Thank you, Dr. Haye, for agreeing to facilitate this wonderful discussion on tips to really strategize how to really stand out on your interviews for dental school. And I'll let you introduce yourself and our esteemed guests here who are on our panel today.
Awesome, awesome. So we've got specific time tonight just for all of you as pre-dental students. And I hope you're ready. I hope you're ready to be engaged. I hope you have some questions because this time has been set aside for you. Take advantage of the mentors and the individuals that you have here tonight that can help you on your journey of becoming a dentist, an oral health professional, or even an oral health physician, right? So we've got 2 of the 3 mentors / D1 students who have just gone through this process of interviewing, applying to dental school, and then most importantly, getting into dental school, the thing that you guys want to do. So tonight we're joined by student Dr. Malachi Wright, who's going to be serving on the panel. Also student Dr. Xion Johnson, and then also student Dr. Akosua, who's actually already started her first year at dental school and she's in clinic right now. So she's going to be joining us in a couple of minutes. But we are really excited to see all of you that are on the call. I see Isaiah Lewis, I see Jasmine, I see Riley, I see Naila from Jersey, I see Clark Norman from Maryland, from Leah, Emily, Ashley, Rachelle, just so many of you that are here, Crystal as well, that are here tonight that are registered. So we're glad that you guys are here and carved out time to help yourself get into dental school, right? So as we get started here, I want to also spend just a little bit of time just to give the panelists an opportunity to kind of share a little bit about themselves, who they are, where they're from, and most importantly, where they're starting dental school right now. All right. So student Dr. Malachi, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about where you're from and who you are.
Awesome. Fantastic. Thank you for the brief introduction, Dr. Darwin. My name is Malachi Wright. I am from College Park, Maryland, born and raised. I attended Towson University in Towson, Maryland, and I'm an incoming D1 at the University of Maryland School of Dentistry. Currently, right now, I start school on August the 14th, so it's in a couple of days. Prior to beginning school, I used to be a teacher in middle school for about a year. It was close to a year when I was finishing my internship at Towson University. And currently I serve as an academic consultant with BMO Academic Consult. Excuse me, Academic Consulting. I'm not 100% sure if you all are aware of that company, but I consult with medical students and dental students on a daily basis. I had like 2 or 3 consulting appointments today, elucidating ways and strategies that they can use to help strengthen their application, going through personal statements, hosting mock interviews, and all things that you all can get here with diversity in dentistry as well. So this is definitely a fantastic program. I appreciate you all for showing up tonight. You know, it's always that initial step, going the extra mile at 8 o'clock on Eastern time or Eastern Standard Time to show up, get this information from individuals like myself and the other student doctors that they have here to make sure that you guys are best prepared for this application cycle.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Student Dr. Xion, please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself as well.
Hey, good evening. Good evening, everyone. My name is Xion Johnson. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. I attended Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia as well. So I was born and raised and went to undergrad in Atlanta. And now I'm currently a D1 at Tufts University in Boston, Massachusetts. I actually just began my year 2 days ago. And the information has started coming like a fire hydrant, as they say. So, but I'm definitely excited to be here to give y'all some tips, advice, and I'm just glad that y'all are here and showing up, like student Dr. Malachi said, to get some information and just go the extra mile and really set yourself up for success when it comes to interviews and getting into dental school as well. So happy to be here and thankful for the opportunity.
Well, we appreciate you carving out time. The third panelist, student Dr. Akosua, she's going to be joining us in a little bit, but we're going to get started. Before we get started, everyone that's on the call, please make sure if you have a question or you have a comment, please put it in the chat. Please put it in the chat. I know Jasmine just mentioned that she's got an interview coming up for Midwestern in Arizona. But if you have a question as we're talking for the next 45 minutes or so, please put it in the chat so that we can recognize you, but most importantly, so that we can share your question and answer it for you tonight. All right. This is your time. This is your time that's carved out specifically to ask questions, but also to learn, to prepare yourself for this very important next step, which is the interview phase as you are doing your applications. Okay. So we're going to dive in because we don't have a lot of time. We're not here for a long time, but we're here for a good time. Right. So first question that I pose to the panelists deals with dentistry. And it may seem basic for many people as to why dentistry for them, but it's really important that you're able to articulate why dentistry for you, not only in your application, but also for your upcoming interview. All right. You will be asked this question, even though they may have seen it in the personal statement. So student Dr. Xion, student Dr. Malachi, please share with us a brief 1-minute reason why dentistry for you.
I think for me, solely based off of the experience I had in underserved communities in Southeast Washington, D.C., seeing the lack of oral health care in that community and how it affected the overall health of individuals in my community, which I saw on a close to daily basis, was extremely impactful through specific scenarios where their health was compromised. I understood the importance of having health care and dental care, that matter, and how they connected. So I think being familiar with that background and having that experience growing up within that community has definitely cultivated the incipitance of me wanting to become an oral healthcare provider.
So personally for me, when I was a kid, I had a serious underbite. And so I was always at the dentist and I was at the orthodontist as a young 6-year-old. And I actually had to go through braces twice. So I had to get used to the dentist. I had to get used to the orthodontist. I couldn't be fearful because I was always there. And so my dentist also always looked like me, which was a big plus for me. And I think that's a very big reason as to why I'm in the place I am now, is because of their guidance. And I would say also, it wasn't until my senior year where I was super concrete, because I had completed some research at, or I had done research rather at USC Keck School of Medicine through the Bridging the Gaps program. And in one of the big points that I found was that when care was standardized for people, or was when care was standardized across the board, we still received worse care. And so on top of that, I also had a case study during my senior year as well, and that dealt with oral health and trying to reach out to the Latino population. I mean, it was a Colgate, or no, excuse me, it was a Crest study. And through that, I found that Hispanic children and Black children as well had poor oral health and actually had faster tooth decay than their white counterparts. And so I think those two things were like the nail in the coffin for me as to why I needed to, dive into the oral health space. Yeah, so.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Second question deals with this whole entire process. And after you answer this question, we're going to talk about some of the challenges and some of the, more specifically, some of the questions that are asked during the interview. But as an overview, we want to know more about this process that people are going through right now. There's some people in the chat that have some interviews that are coming up in January, some people that are now putting together their application in anticipation for interviews in the fall, and also in anticipation of getting some acceptances early in December when the first wave of acceptances go out for dental school. So one of the questions that people really need to know and understand deals with some of the challenges. I see we have student Dr. Akosua that's just joined us too, who's on the panel. So this question is for the panelists. What was the hardest part about this process for you? And I say the process, we say the process meaning whether it's the application, parts about the DAT, and even more specifically about the preparation for the interview, right? What was the hardest part about this process for you?
Well, firstly, I would firstly say that one of the most difficult parts about this whole process was definitely the imposter syndrome aspect. Of course, we know coming from minority communities, there's not many of us who are achieving to acquire such high success in this realm of medicine, in terms of having that access to it. So I think holding myself accountable, but then also feeling somewhat of an imposter when I was at these institutions. And to give you guys a little background about myself, I graduated high school with an okay GPA. I was never really the best student in school. I started off at community college, and during that experience, I really didn't do too hot in my first class that I took at my community college. It was a pre-calc class. And I was really debating whether or not I wanted to go down this path because I knew it would require a lot of discipline, consistency, and a lot of hard work on my part. But I came to a point where I decided that I was going to be the maker of my own destiny. And by doing that, I strove to be consistent, disciplined, and hold myself accountable through all the things that I went through. And ever since that moment, I've never gotten anything lower than an A in all the prereq all the classes that I've taken in my undergraduate career. So I think being disciplined and consistent was definitely the most difficult part. And particular in regards to the interview prep, I think holding yourself accountable when it came to understanding exactly what schools are looking for when they're interviewing you. I do think that for me personally, the interview portion of my application was definitely the strongest point, because I had experience speaking in front of large crowds for basically the past 5 to 10 years. So what I did was I made sure that I had a sample questions that I was going to see during my interview day, and I tried to prepare as adequately as possible while not stressing over the fact that it was going to be an interview that would essentially get me into dental school. So to sum it all up, I don't want to take too much time from the other panelists. I'm sure they have fantastic advice to give you all. But I wanted to elucidate that one of the best things or one of the hardest things about this process for me was making sure that I was disciplined, consistent, and held myself accountable when it came to studying for the DAT, making sure I had a polished application, and doing the research behind talking to students who are at these institutions about the interview process and those aspects.
Yeah, so I would say also the hardest part of the interview and the interview process and getting into school would definitely be undergrad, believe it or not. That's probably the bulk of the tough things that you're gonna have to get through is those prerequisites, the cell bio, the biochem, the organic chem. Those classes are gonna be the tough part. But once you get past that, and if you handle your business there, it makes your life in the interview process and the application process a lot easier because you can be comfortable knowing that you did what you had to do in class in undergrad to get to where you're going. Because for us as bio majors and as people who want to go into oral health, you have to start at your freshman year and you have to hit the ground running, because if you don't, you're going to fall behind, and it's only going to put you behind and behind and behind. And it's okay. I mean, it happens to people, but I mean, it's best to stay on top and to hit the ground running. And of course, the DAT was pretty tough, and managing that with schoolwork as well. So I would say undergrad is the hardest part, but if you take care of that, you'll be just fine.
Hello,
We have,
everyone.
go ahead, student Dr. Akosua. I just wanted to
Yeah.
make sure that you, that we acknowledge you, that you're on the call, and maybe just real briefly introduce yourself, where you're from, where you're at currently, and then you can dive into your answer to the hardest part about this process.
Thank you. Sorry, everyone. I'm running a little late. We had clinic. It was our first day in clinic today, so I had to stay. I couldn't leave early. But my name is Akosua Afriyie. I'm currently at Arizona School of Dentistry and Oral Health. Really hot out here. It's 110 degrees, so have fun wherever you are right now. What else? I'm from New Jersey, so moved out here, started dental school 3 weeks ago. So I'm freshly, new into this. So please reach out if you have any questions. The hardest part, I would say that definitely the DAT for me. I was a great student in undergrad. I was involved in all of these, extracurricular. I maintained my grades, my GPA, but the DAT was really tough for me. I took it several times. So kind of understanding that, one, knowing what you need to fix, right? Like when you take the test, you need to assess yourself. Like that's the thing about, getting into dental school, is knowing your weak points. Like you apply to schools and they'll tell you, oh, you don't get in, seek advice from here or there. But honestly, doing a self-reflection, knowing, okay, I need to pick up that orgo, I need to pick up the math or whatever section it is. Honestly, doing that self-analyzation, and that's what I had to do. The first 2 times, I don't think I got that right, but the third time was, the best time. So I would say the DAT was the worst for me, but I'm here. I put the work in. I stayed last summer. I was just all the way in the library every day. So knowing what you need to do and doing that, you're gonna get to get to. So,
And that's good, and that's duly noted, because the challenges, being able to assess what the challenges are, is the first step, and then the second step is to figure out how to overcome those challenges, right? So the second part of this question, and just real quick, what did you guys do to overcome some of those challenges with the DAT, with the prerequisites, with writing your personal statement, or even preparing for the interview, which we'll get into next? But what was the actual action steps that you took that allowed you to be proactive and trying to overcome these challenges that you have when you're applying to dental school?
Well, I know that it's definitely easier said than done, but one of the things that I strive to do with any challenge that I'm faced with is to look at that challenge as an opportunity to add to the long experiences of challenges that I've had to help me get through any potential challenges that I'll face with in the future. So one of the things that I like to do is I like to draw upon those memories that I have of previous challenges or sacrifices that someone's made for me or anything of that nature to give me motivation to persevere throughout any challenge. And then I add that challenge that I overcame to my list of long challenges that I've been able to overcome. So as you keep stacking those challenges up, you'll see that no matter what you're faced with, the orgos, the biochems, and the DAT, all those different things, and you hold yourself accountable and you stay consistent, you stay disciplined, you'll be able to overcome these challenges, no matter how long it may take you. I also think that being sure that you surround yourself with people who are always motivating you and pushing you through challenges as well. As someone like a gym partner, I have a twin brother who's going to law school at University of Maryland with me. And that's one of the things that we pride ourselves on doing for the past 4 to 5 years that we've been grinding in school. Just making sure that we push each other and that we challenge each other with every opportunity that we're presented with ourselves to be as great as we can be every single day. So I think surrounding yourself with that group of individuals who can push you through challenges and then reminiscing on the past experiences that you've had to get you through challenges as well is something that can help you get through whatever you're faced with throughout the next couple of years of your life.
Zion, student Dr. Zion.
Yes. So I would say your biggest ally is starting early. Start early. Get ahead of everyone. I think you start applying your end of your junior year, I want to say. If you're gonna go straight through, begin early, start studying. Even if you just buy the book, DAT Destroyer or Bootcamp or whatever it is, buy it early and get a head start, because at the end of the day, everything that you've learned is going to come back. And so you want to kind of refresh yourself before I guess you want to refresh yourself to help yourself as you begin your studies and continue your studies. And then also definitely surrounding yourself as well, like student Dr. Malachi was saying, surround yourself with people that are like-minded and push each other. I think that's another thing, is just pushing each other and helping each other, because you're going to need that. You're going to need them as you continue. And in terms of the DAT, I would say just find a very, very concrete schedule that you can abide by, even if that means writing the time that you're going to wake up to the time you're going to brush your teeth, the time you're going to leave the door, to the time you're going to sit down at the desk to start studying. Be very, very, very disciplined in it, and just know yourself, and yeah, just lock in. You're gonna have to lock in, but it's all gonna pay off when it comes to dental school, because even in these first 2 days, there's a lot of information, but being able to sit down and be disciplined enough to study for 5, 6, 7 hours at a time, like you're gonna need it. You're gonna need it. My first day, we had anatomy, and straight from anatomy ended at 12 o'clock, and we went straight to the library, and we didn't leave until 6 or 7 o'clock. And that was the first day. And so it's going to come back. Just be ready. But y'all will be okay. You'll be okay.
No, for sure. I have to echo everything they're saying. I would say for the DAT, so everything is going to be different, right? So for the DAT, if you know that, the challenge is the material, if you know that the challenge is not having the proper resource, then kind of reaching out or partnering up with other students, maybe sharing the boot camp or whatever, if cost is the issue, or if, this material is not working, but you don't know which one to use, like reaching out to people. I would say that's the biggest thing with the DAT for me, because I was kind of doing the same thing, but expected a different result, or I didn't know how to change how I was studying. So kind of really analyzing and seeking, like following up with whatever the challenge is. As far as dental school application in general, I would say you don't know what you don't know. I know Dr. Darwin, when I met up with him, he told me, do you know SNDA? And at that point, I didn't know what SNDA was. And he said, you need to be there this summer. And I remember that summer I went to SNDA. And I think it also changed my experience, because when you're in that room full of everyone, they look just like you with the same story, you want to be there. So you're going to do whatever it takes to look like them. And I think if you kind of start surrounding yourself with this type of environment, you have only one option to get there. And that's to be one of them, to be one of us, so.
Great response.
Add one last point. Don't be afraid.
Yeah, go ahead.
To diversify your study materials, whether it's DAT Bootcamp, Destroyer, YouTube Academy, anything. Use it all. You're going to need it.
Yes, you're going to need all the support, as much support, both before and during the process of applying to dental school. And you're going to need that support to get through. The three panelists don't even know what they're getting ready to get up and face. And one of the things that they're going to really rely on is the strength and the family of other dental students, and especially those that look like them at their schools, that are going to help them get through. That's the hardest part. Getting into dental school, it sounds crazy, but it's easy. It's getting through dental school that's most important. And you get through, you have to worry about that part once you've passed the interview. So let's go back, right? Let's go back and talk a little bit more about the interview, because this is very important, right? You don't apply to dental school and just get in. You apply to dental school, have an interview, get selected for an interview, and then you get in, you get selected. So two parts. The first part is we want to hear a little bit more about what the panelists did as part of their preparation for the interview. And then once we talk about that, we want to go directly into some interview questions. So let's start off first with the panelists answering the question, what did you do to prepare yourself for the interview? Very briefly, what did you do?
So after finalizing the list of schools I planned on applying to, I then try to contact some students through Instagram or through YouTube, whatever it was, to try to ask them about their interview experience. And then I also went on Student Doctor Network to find some of the questions that were being asked as well. And I started to compile the list. So I knew I applied to 10 schools. I started compiling a list of questions that could potentially be asked at those 10 schools. And many of these questions overlap as well. So my strategy behind it was I'm pretty comfortable with speaking with people. So I knew that that wasn't something I had to be too worried about. And, one of the pieces of advice that I got from an individual who is a faculty member at Howard University School of Dentistry, he elucidated to me that it's important to know that you're going to be nervous when you interview, and you're nervous because you care. And if you're not nervous, then you don't care, then you probably shouldn't be there. So being aware that you're going to be nervous and that's okay will help calm your nerves during the interview. So just keep that in mind while you're preparing. Also, one of the things that I did was I made 3 bullet points for every single question that I had. And instead of writing out full sentences, I wanted to make sure that I touched each point that I had under the question when I was responding to the question. So if that point was answering a question about why dentistry, I wanted to talk about my experience in the community. That was one point. The next point would be location. And then another point would be my mentorship. So those 3 points would be points that I want to hit on when I'm answering the question. And it doesn't sound robotic because I didn't pre-prep sentences. And to kind of help you prepare for that, answering those questions, it would be great if you kind of just talk to yourself in the mirror, even if you get on a Zoom call by yourself and you talk to yourself, because a lot of the interviews are on Zoom. So being comfortable with speaking on a Zoom platform, having to use the platform, and just talking to yourself, answering those questions, making sure that you're not using a lot of fillers. And don't freak out if you do use a lot of fillers, or if you do stumble, or if you do mess up. Just know you're a human being. It's going to be all right. Get back up, keep interviewing, and make sure that it's as personal as possible. I try to elucidate to a lot of students that the main thing about a lot of these interviews are very conversational. At all the schools I interviewed at, they were very conversational interviews. And except for the CURA assessment, I saw a question in the chat about a CURA assessment. And I did have a CURA assessment when I applied to, I think it was New England University. And that was, personally, I would say that was one of my most challenging interviews, solely because it wasn't a personal type of interview. It was just like a person pre-recorded video asking me questions, but you could definitely overcome it. You have to remain extremely calm during that form of interview, because there's a timer that pulls up and it's like counting down. It's like really nerve-wracking. But if you prepare for it adequately, then you'll be perfectly fine for that form of interview as well.
And just before Xion answers, you made a great point that everyone needs to hear and put a pin in, which is prepare. You must prepare for this process. This is the most important part of this process, which is being able to communicate and have a conversation with the school that you're interviewing with. It's an interview, but it's really a conversation. They want to get to know you more as an individual, about your goals and your passions and the things that are related to you wanting to become a dentist. It is a conversation. So you need to be able to feel comfortable talking about the things that you're interested in and also having questions. Yes, you will be nervous. Yes, you will be stressed out, but it's because this is an important professional development activity for you. So you should practice. You should practice talking with others in front of others like we're doing right now, virtually, but also in person, so that you are able to articulate your reasons for why dentistry is important to you and what you're looking to achieve, and the goals that you're looking to achieve as an oral health physician or oral health practitioner. Student Dr. Xion, what are some of the things that you did to prepare for your interview?
So for my interview, I would say the biggest thing, well, first of all, when I began my interview prep, I found myself looking for cookie cutter answers and things, until I started to recognize that this is really a big time for self-reflection. Write your values down, write what you're about down, write your story down, everything that you've done to get there, and you'll start to see why you want to do dentistry, and it'll all make more sense, because this is all a big self-reflection. And so another thing that I did is, in terms of coming to the interview with questions, always do an extremely deep dive into whatever school site that you're going to be interviewing with. Don't just go to the first link or the second link. Go to that 8th link that nobody's looking at, and understand that those are going to be the questions that you want to ask. Don't ask any, like, I guess, cookie cutter questions. Be authentic, be yourself. And then I would say also, in terms of like interview prep for the caries assessment, I didn't find a way to study for that or prep for that. It was more so just really having my values down, knowing what I'm about, knowing what I value, knowing what just knowing what I value, and how, like, my reason for dentistry. Is really hard to kind of prep for that, but you'll be okay as long as you know why you want to do dentistry, and you know your values, because that's ultimately like what's going to get you to school, along with your grades as well, but and your DAT.
Great points there, especially about knowing about yourself and doing a deep dive. For all of you that are getting ready for interviews at some point, you must do a deep dive at each and every program that you're interviewing for at that time, right? Yes, there are 65 plus dental schools, but all of them are a little bit different and are also very unique. And you want to be able to communicate not only who you are and but also how you will fit into and contribute to that program or that school, specifically based on some of the values and the mission and the goals of that school as well. So you have to be able to do a deep dive of these programs, of these schools, as part of your preparation as well. So I wanted to mention that is an important part of each interview that you're preparing for at each at these different institutions. Student Dr. Akosua, what were some of the things that you did to prepare for the interview? And then we'll go into some of the interview questions that were typically asked as well after that. But how did you prepare?
Yeah, I kind of wrote a couple things down, so I'll just touch on those. And I think Xion and Malachi already touched on them. One, if there's anything on your application, you need to, like anything on your application, you need to know. I had an open file. So there's different type of interviews, right? There's open file, there's a closed file. Make sure you know that. Make sure you know what the school is gonna use, whether it's open or closed, because with a closed interview, they don't know anything about you. They've not looked at your application. They kind of don't know a lot. They just want to walk in and tell them about yourself. Really, with an open file, they've done everything. They've done their research on you. They know your community service. They know your bad grades. They know your good grades. So that's what I had. So one of the things that I'm so grateful, I reached out to someone who was a student here, and they told me, know your ins and out on your application. And I'm glad I did, because in my interview, they started asking me questions. Oh, you did this here. Tell me more about that. Your DHT, I saw you took a couple of times. Tell me, like, it was really personable, but it was also very like knowing your stuff. Because if they ask you something and you're standing there like, huh, that's my application. Like, you don't even know your application. How do you want them to take you? So knowing your application is very important, and knowing whether it's a closed or open file. Being honest, this is what they do on a daily basis. These are the professors that are going to be teaching you. Half of the people that interviewed my class, they're the same professors we're seeing. So being honest, because when you come here and they're asking, you're mingling with them, you don't want to be a different person, or even just at the interview, you don't want to be fake. They're going to see right through you. And like Xion said, researching the school, knowing where you're going. Like, why wouldn't you want to know what their values are, what their core ethics are? Like, you want to know those things so you can carry on the conversation. When they touch on something, you can expand on that. It tells them that you've done your research. It tells them that you want to be there. So I'll say those are the couple points that I have.
That sounds good. So let's go into the points related to the interview questions. All right. Student Dr. Malachi, student Dr. Xion, and student Dr. Akosua, you all have had probably amongst the three of you, if we would add up the number of interviews that you had, if I recall, and don't ask me how I remember, but it's probably about 25 to 30 schools that you all collectively have had interviews / applied to. So I say that because you have had experience being asked questions at the interview from more than just one program or more than just two programs. So what were some of the typical questions that you remember being asked at these interviews over the course of this time last year when you were finishing up and getting your invitations? What were some of those typical questions that you remember? And what were some of the hardest questions? I know that was one of the things that one of the participants wanted to hear in the chat. What were some of the hardest questions that you were asked during the interview?
I would honestly say I really want to start with answering with some of the hardest questions, because that example is just on the forefront of my mind. When I interviewed at Columbia University and at University of Pennsylvania, they both asked me the same question. When I interviewed at Pennsylvania after I interviewed at Columbia, so I was somewhat prepared for it, this question, but it was a two-part question. And the two-part question was, what were 3 of my strengths and 3 of my weaknesses? And then that question was followed up by them asking me, based off of like the institutions that I attended, and applying to an Ivy League institution and not having like an Ivy League background in regards to like undergrad and stuff like that, how I felt like I would do at their program with the academic rigor there. And I think honestly, answering those questions, the first one specifically, making sure that you're concise with your answer and also intentional. Those 3 strengths should be something that the school values and something that you can provide examples for. And then those 3 weaknesses should be something that you can learn from and you can build upon. Not 3 weaknesses that show that something that is inevitably unrepairable. So answering those questions was definitely challenging, but it's something you can consider. I had multiple schools ask me that question. And then that question behind whether or not you're prepared for the academic rigor, whether you're interviewing at an Ivy League school or not, and how you respond to that question. Personally, I think my acceptance to those schools was solely based off of, or not solely, but heavily based off of my response to those questions and the experience that I had in response to those questions as to why I believed I will be able to maintain that academic rigor at an institution that's one of the best in the world. And then going from there, some of the typical questions that are typically asked are definitely why this institution. So like the other student doctors elucidated before, it's extremely important that you understand the values that the school uphold, and then what the school has to offer as well, and how you can contribute to what the school has to offer, building upon that mission, and making sure that you're building upon the mission statement of that school. I think if you're able to elucidate that message efficiently, you'll be successful in your interviews. And of course, I'm quite sure the other student doctors have a lot of questions that we're all asked during our interviews that stumped us a little bit, but we were able to get over. So making sure that you diligently prepare, get those questions in mind, and then go in with an open mind in your responses to how you're going to respond to those questions, and just trying to remain calm if you get a question that you're not too familiar with.
Yeah, that's key. Student Dr. Xion, Student Dr. Akosua, what other questions, in addition to the ones that Student Dr. Malachi mentioned, were ones that you heard during your interviews at schools?
Yes, so I would also say one of the questions that stumped me was, what are some of your weaknesses, or what are like 2 or 3 of your weaknesses? And it was stumped me only because I came in preparing, to talk all about everything that I had done and whatnot, and here they are asking me about what are my weaknesses. And so I was a little stumped by that, but I mean, I just kind of worked my way through it. But I would definitely prepare for that. And then another one was like more of an ethical question, I would say. It was if you saw somebody cheating, like, what would you do? And like, would you bring it to the attention, or what would you do? And it's funny because I had seen that question pop up, like when I was doing my research on what questions they would ask, but I always saw it and I was like, I don't know. And I don't know. And I could never figure out like what I would do, But I mean, once I got to the interview and they asked me, I was like, well, here I am, and I got to make a decision, And so just go with whatever you're feeling. Like, there's really no right or wrong answer. Just go with go with what you like, what you would honestly do. Like, think of it as if you're talking to a wall and you're like, well, what would I do? Don't think of it as like there's a person in front of you. Think of it like a wall and say, what would I do? And then that's the answer that you want to give. You want to be authentic. And then I guess one of the like more odd questions that I received was, I was doing an interview at a school in California, and they asked me, they said, well, you're going to be very far from home, being that I'm from Atlanta. Like, how are you going to deal with that? And it was kind of interesting, but me having a very, very strong family background and being very family oriented, I just always knew that my family was going to hold me down one way or another, whether it was through phone calls, my classmates. I just knew I was going to be okay. That was my thing. I was like, I'll be okay. I'll be in dental school, so I will be just fine. But I think those are probably the 3 questions that were more odd. But of course, you have your why dentistry. That's definitely gonna come up, so just be ready for that. And yeah, but some of my interviews were also like very more of a dialogue, like just tell me about yourself, and that question really goes wherever it goes. And that's why I say you need to know yourself. You need to understand yourself, because when they ask you that question, you want to be able to talk about yourself and talk about things that they may have not seen in the application as well. So that's why I say show up authentically, and yeah, just be yourself and be honest, and you'll be just fine.
Akosua, just based on time, just give us one other question that was maybe difficult for you to answer that you noticed, and then we're going to go to a question that's in the chat with regards that Jasmine has asked, and I'll give you guys that. But just give us one other additional challenging question that you answered, and how you answered it.
Yeah, I think they touched on most of the, important questions. One of the questions that I had which was very odd, because no one prepares for this type of question. It was, what is a social issue currently that, you know, concerns you? Like, you know, so you're planning all of these questions, but you can also get thrown, a question that you're not expecting at all. And, you know, that's the question that you have to think right now. What are the social justice or what social issues going on? People don't think about this in the interview. So just making sure that you're just ready to be yourself and answer that honestly. And I was just very honest. I just answered it, whatever at that time, you know, social issue was happening, you know, shootings or whatever, just being honest and talking about it. And if you don't know something, it's okay to say, I don't know, or give me a second, or just, it's okay, because you're a human being. You don't always have to speak or say something, because then you can also, you know, look crazy, you're just babbling. So
Yeah. And in response to that, as your mentor, as your mentors, we will tell you, don't say, I don't know. Say, you know what? That's a great question. And you think about it, and then you can share your thoughts. All right. Because you do know, you're just sharing
Right.
your thoughts, right?
Or give me a second. Just give me a second.
Yeah,
Let me think about
give
it.
me a second. Let me think about that some more, because that is a really great question, Dr. So-and-so. I think I would do X, Y, and Z, right? And those ethical questions will come up, like, what would you do? Just know that ethics, those ethical questions are personal, right? Ethics is a personal matter. It's the thing that you would do no matter, well, it's the thing that you would do when people are not looking, right? So that's why it's personal. So make sure that you share with people that this is what I would do based on your viewpoint. I want to be able to go into right now, go quickly into Jasmine's question. Jasmine, are you still here? I think you're still here. She had a really great question about the questions that you should ask the interviewer, right? Or the interview team. And yes, I will tell you right now, affirmative, you must have questions prepared for your interview, meaning questions that you, as a candidate, you must ask. All right. There's no such thing as a stupid question or a dumb question. You must ask a question, because it also shows that you are interested in the school and the program, etc. All right. And you have a decision, or you have a duty and responsibility at this interview to ask questions that are going to help you determine whether or not you're going to select this program or this school. Because when you get an acceptance, you want to be able to say, I want this school versus I want school A versus school B. So that's the reason why you need to ask some questions. So one of the questions, and I'm going to chime in real quick before we ask one of the panelists to answer the question as to what is a good question to ask the interviewers or the panelists. One question I think is very important to ask is, if there's one thing that you could change about the school or about the dental school program from D1 to D4, what would that be? And why? That'll give you a lot of insight as to what's going on currently at the school, and also potentially what are some of the things that the school is looking to implement and to modify based on their evaluation of how things have gone the year before, or the year, 2 years before, or 3 years before. You need to know that, because that's going to help you with your decision, right? I'm going to ask student Dr. Xion, what questions were you able to ask the panelists at your interviews for your dental school? What were some of the questions that you asked?
Yes. So in addition to my deep dive in finding questions through that, just about the school in general, one thing that I did was I asked the interviewer a more personal question as to their experience at the school and things that they may have seen, or just ask them about their experience. And like Dr. Darwin said, what is something that you would change, or something that you've seen that hasn't been changed, that you would change, or what is something that that you think that you see in the student body, a problem that could be solved by students, and what is one of those issues that you feel like students could solve. But get creative, get very creative, and just ask more personal questions. I think that'll kind of separate you from the rest, because people are going to ask, oh, well, they're going to ask your basic questions, but we're not here to ask those. We're here to get the deep dive and get the true insight as to what's going on at that school. How can I be an asset to that school? And yeah, so be creative, be very creative.
Jasmine made a great point in the chat, which was related to being able to ask the panelists, what do they like most about the school, right? And that's a great question, because it gives you the opportunity to learn from individuals that are there 24/7 or been there for 10 years, as if they're faculty, their tenure position, if they've been there for a while, the things that they really like, which may be things that will attract you or have already attracted you to that school or confirmed why you like this particular school. So yes, Jasmine, that's a great question to ask, which is, what are one or two things that you really like most about the University of Maryland or the University of San Antonio Health Sciences Center? What are those things? Great questions to ask, right? I'm looking in the chat to see if there's any other questions here. One thing.
Can I add one more? Can I add
yes,
one more?
absolutely.
So knowing what you want to do too. So with me, I wanted to know whether if I graduated, if I needed to do like a 1-year GPR, AHD. I asked my school, what is the rate of students that graduate here that need to do those programs? Because I know with my school, we have a lot of clinical experience. So first year, 3 weeks in, I'm already in a clinic assistant. I wanted this because when fourth year, we're doing rotations. When I graduated, I want to be working. I didn't want to do a GPR. So also asking those questions, like how soon do students get in a clinic? Or what is the rate of students that graduate here that need to do GPR? That means you need more experience before you can start working. Kind of start thinking about these personal questions for yourself as well.
Great point. Great point. I know we're getting close to our designated time, and please continue to ask questions in the chat. We may be able to, after this panel is finished, we may be able to respond back to those questions that are currently in the chat. Isaiah, you asked how long should your responses be? Brother, I would tell you 60 seconds, 60 to 90 seconds. That's it. And I mean, keep in mind that you need to get to the point. You need to tell them what you want to tell them again, and then wrap it up. Right? Be concise, be consistent, and get to the point. All right.
Dr. Hayes, there's a
yes.
question about thoughts on following up post-interview, and then also bringing a manual dexterity project with you to an interview. What do you think about those?
Let's go to the follow-up post-interview, because I think this is where a lot of people have some anxiety, and the panelists can share. What did you do after the interview to be able to maybe ensure that you stood out as one of several candidates that were interviewed that day? So I asked student Dr. Malachi this question.
Well, one of the things that I did, I made sure that I wrote down the person who was interviewing me's name, and I asked for their email when I went back into like the general room. And for me, I'm heavily involved in the community of Baltimore. My brother and I have several news interviews here. So one of the things that I did was I sent over a thank you email to them. And I also included some of the work that I was doing in the community of Baltimore through some of the links of the news interviews and the articles I was featured in. And I sent all that stuff to them so that they can see my experiences in addition to what I told them during my interview as well. And again, I didn't do this for every single school. because sometimes I just forgot. It didn't really affect my outcome too much, but that's one thing that I definitely did, saying thank you, sending that email, and just thanking them for their time.
And I want to mention the email is great, but remember, everybody is sending the email, and this committee that you've talked to, they're receiving a lot of emails. So how do you stand out? You stand out also by not sending an email, or in addition to sending an email, you send a thank you card, a handwritten thank you card to Dr. Smith saying, thank you so much for the opportunity to interview. 1 or 2 points that you remember talking to Dr. Smith about in your interview, and why you are a good fit for the University of Maryland, for Tufts University, or for AT Still, and you handwrite and send that thank you card in the mail. That's how you stand out, because everybody's going to send an email. It's very easy to do, but it's not easy to do is send that thank you card. So another tip and strategy that I strongly recommend.
Piggyback on that. That's so true. I wanted to make sure we touched on that soft skill of writing a handwritten thank you. Right after your interview, if you need to go in the bathroom or in your car, you immediately write down topics that you remember in the conversation you had with that interviewer, so that you can be specific in that thank you, because they don't want a generic, oh, I want to express my sincere gratitude. You know, they're hearing that all the place. You have to say, it was so great to see that you also played basketball in undergrad, or something that you could kind of connect, or anything that you had just a personal kind of conversation on the side, because that will trigger their memory of who you were and really stand out. And I hate to say that we are at the end. That goes so fast.
I know. This may be an opportunity for a part 2. I don't know. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to make sure we have a chance to go around the table here. And if you guys just have any last, like, one specific, golden tip that you want to just make sure you pass along to those coming behind you. And then I will also save these questions that were brought up in the chat that maybe we didn't get to, that we could answer. Either we have a chat group on our Facebook group on diversity and dentistry mentorship. So if you guys haven't joined that, we have 1,700 people in that community, many of who are colleagues who will answer your questions, and dental students. And so ask those questions there as well. And we'll try to definitely clip some of this interview when we upload our recording to YouTube, and it will be available for a replay. But yes, let's go around and do our final. Dr. Student is on as well. She's the D2 at Texas Tech and a program chair for our mentoring program. Did you want to say anything before we go around?
Yeah, I just wanted to throw in that I do know that the webinars are too short. 1 hour is not enough. That is why we have the mixers as well on the 3rd and 4th Saturdays. We have mentors come on there as well. So if you like to continue the conversation, do request the link to join the mixers as well. But
for match mixers, right? For the match needs.
But as Dr. Lila did mention, to take advantage of the social media, I used it a lot when I was applying. So do ask on there. You have many people willing to help that cannot make the one-on-one time for this.
Yeah. And in fact, I'll probably take some of the questions and put them in the Facebook group, and then we have your contact as well, so we can get those answers to you. But yes, student Dr. Xion, yeah, parting words.
Parting words. So 1, start early, get ahead of the game. And then 2, I would say, like I said, do a deep dive into yourself, write down what makes you unique, and write down how you feel you could you can be an asset to that school, because ultimately that's what's going to set you apart from the rest.
Dr. Malachi, what parting words, what's one tip or advice that you would have, knowing what you know now anything that you would do differently regarding the interview or just the interview process or just the application process? One thing.
One thing is definitely make sure you're confident in your competence. You got here for a reason. You're here for a reason. You're capable. Make sure that you're confident when you go into your interviews, and just make sure you leverage your resources. I know Dr. Darwin has a YouTube channel. This institution is providing you with some great resources through diversity in dentistry. And reach out to individuals who are on this journey and have gone through the things you've gone through, to ensure that you get that information that you need. Be confident, and reach out for help when you need help.
Okay, and I'm gonna add the last words. So be gentle with yourself. It's gonna happen. Just keep at it. I'll say if you have the option to do virtual or in person, take in person. It's gonna be a life-changing experience because virtual is not the same. It's just not. So those are the two things I'll say. Be gentle with yourself and choose an in-person interview.
Well, thank you all, the panelists. Thank you to DID for hosting this very important webinar related to interviews and the application process. Hopefully this has been very helpful for all of you that have been on the call. And do yourself a favor, go back and listen to the recording once it's available for you. All right. Hear it over and over and over again so that you are implementing and doing the things that were discussed, right? The coming onto the call live and listening to it does not make any difference if you are not implementing the things and the suggestions, the tips and the strategies that have been shared by all of us, and including the panelists that have just gotten into dental school and that are now D1s at their prospective schools. You must implement these things to continue your success. So shout out again to DID for hosting this, and looking forward to doing more. Part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5.
There's a lot of information. Dr. Hayes, I just wanted to thank you again so much. And we know how busy you are. And you have been guiding and inspiring our dentists for many years now. And your legacy shows right here. You have your mentees here in dental school. So that's just amazing. And thank you again for just all your service and your leadership. You can learn more about his program at drdarwinhayesdds.com as well, new dentist coach. And guys, I wanted to also mention that every month we'll have our public webinar. So next month, I think we're talking on time management tips. We have information coming forward on putting your best foot forward, professionalism, and then mentally preparing yourself for dental school, because we're hoping many of you later on in the year. But if you go back onto our YouTube channel, we have webinars on personal statements, writing that, and DAT prep. So I really would love for you guys to take advantage of that. And lastly, you have mentors. If you don't have a mentor, let us, and we'll get you set up when we have our next open matching cycle, which will be in January. But the best thing to take all this advice is to put it in action by practicing. Have your mentor there to do a mock interview with you. We'll be doing some of that with our match mentees next week. But if you don't have one, even just a friend, accountability partner, if you're, have a friend who's applying, do these mock interviews with each other. And you might think that answer that same question all the time, and you're just doing it in your head. But if you don't say it and verbally hear yourself, audibly hearing yourself, then it's not going to come across the way you really want to unless you actually practice it that way. So I just know the future is so bright seeing all three of you. And Dr. Akosua, I can't wait to meet you. I'm just down in Tucson, so we're close.
I know, I'm excited.
Yeah, we have our Diversified Dentistry Youth Summit, which will be at ATSU on October 20th. So those are the upcoming events. And really, thank you guys. I wish you all the best, Dr. Malachi, Dr. Xion. You guys are going to do fantastic, and we need you. So do well, finish up, support one another, and you got this.
Let's go. Yeah. Let's go, class of 2027. Let's go.
Right. Everybody, I hope you do leave inspired, because if we did it, so can you. Thank you so much, and have a great evening.
You got this, guys.